For years in sales leadership, I was always working hard to help my sales folk get in front of execs. But as we all know, it's not always possible at all. And in most cases, it's not possible until the end of a sales campaign. So this is really about when we can't get to decision makers. Because I was reminded some years ago when I took myself out of sales leadership and went back to carrying a bag, that we don't always need to get to CEOs or CFOs or COOs. And especially in big ticket deals, it's really not always possible. So let's go back to the core objectives for getting to decision makers. Isn't it to gain real insight, to get their insight on their buying methods, their buying processes, and how the organization will buy, to be able to validate their perspective, to be able to validate our information in order to be able to create a great solution. And of course, to exert influence. Because the view from the top can be very different from the green pastures of the base of the business. We get insight into things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to see. And equally, through validation, we can begin to see gaps that maybe on the ground are impossible to get sight of. Shouldn't stop us from trying to get to those execs, of course. And I just recommend a really worthwhile 23 minutes with Mike Gamson. Not usually a massive fan of LinkedIn Learning, but this one's good, Selling to Executives. Gives some great advice on how to get to executives, but Mike also accepts that there are times when we can't. So what do? Well, we go back to the objective. We go back to getting that insight, getting that validation, and still, yes, exerting influence, but it's going to need to be indirect to begin with. We start with the person who we know or the people we know and just ask them whether they can get us insight into what the decision makers are thinking and how they're thinking. Maybe our contact or contacts don't know, but maybe they know people who know. And equally, that VP may well be surrounded with a number of others who we could get to know to gain insight, validate, and exert influence. But how then do we do that with these people when we're acting indirectly? Well, quite simply, the secret I found back on the ground, carrying a bag, was to become part of their team, and in doing so, help to form a relationship where they were part of my team, still to achieve that same objective, to properly understand the operational problems for the individuals and, as the VP might see them, to understand the risks that those problems were causing and what was blocking the objectives, the aspirations, and inhibiting the achievement of KPIs for all of those in the business, and especially that VIP. And in creating this relationship, in creating this team, I found quite simply that I could still get that insight, I could still get that validation, and I could still exert influence. It was just indirect. And if we then, as a team, did that well, that more often than not got me the direct access as well. So, doesn't always have to be direct. We obviously have to try, but if we can't, I wanted to share a few methods to achieve the same objective with you. Hope it helps.